This is a book by Stephen Shore called Uncommon Places. One of the things I had not known until I did a little more reading about Stephen Shore is he spent some time in the late 60s at Andy Warhol's factory. In his time there, he saw Warhol thought of everything as a decision. He asked people around him for opinions on like what his work was. And while Shore wasn't the same way, he's very attention oriented and he pays a lot of attention to every single detail. I hadn't noticed this quite as much from flipping through the book the first time. And after reviewing it again, I started to notice smaller details. Like he pointed out in an interview I was watching, there's one picture later in the book with a lot of signs in it, and no sign is overlapping. You can see and read what was on every single one, and they were on different layers, from a couple feet from the camera to a couple hundred feet. And it's really amazing how much he was able to capture with that and not mess up or cover up any of them. Shore shot with an 8x10 view camera, and these cameras pick up so many details that you often wouldn't realize what was in the image until later. And one of the things that he pointed out was a child sitting in a window, and you can see the window's cracked. You can see his foggy breath fogging up the window. And just small details like that throughout the book. There's always something else to find in his work, and I just find that really interesting about him. He chooses to edit his work a lot after it's been released, and he's re-released this collection of images a few times with more images each time. Most of them due to his aesthetic changing, some of them due to being able to develop film that was messed up and when it was being developed in the past, and just having more technology now to be able to fix that. I think it's interesting the way the reception to his work has changed over time as well. When these were taken in the 70s, these were very banal scenes, very boring images, and of course, there were some people that did like them then, but now they're so much more palatable to us just because they have this almost retro aesthetic that wasn't even part of the image when it was created. So it's interesting to think how an image evolves and can evolve over time. I think it'd be interesting to see if these images were taken now over 50 years ago and having them reviewed in 50 years and see what the difference in reception is. And barring the artistic ability from it, just thinking about how much of this work is coming from the retro aesthetic. And one thing I noticed, one of the images that felt almost out of place to me in this work was on page 100 of Market Street in San Francisco. It was a very dull scene, and there's just not that much color in it, and it looks like something we could have now. Another one of the images I found was from New York City of a building that was red in this book, and on Google Maps you can find it, and it's just been painted gray and lost all the color. So I wonder how that's going to look in 50 years, what that effect is going to be. Even though the public reception to Stephen Shore has gotten stronger over time, I really do think he's a timeless photographer, and I see a lot of myself in him that I hope to be able to channel more of in my images.